What's up, geniuses? Welcome back to For the Record, and I'm your host, Rob Markman. Now, if you follow us on this channel, you know we show a lot of love to producers. Our Deconstructed series is one of our favorites to produce. I know it's one of y'all favorites to watch because we read all the comments. And, you know, we want to talk about now the business of producing. We talk a lot about the art of producing, but we want to talk about the business. There's been a lot of talk about Spotify combating the 44% raise increase for songwriters and producers. There's been a lot of talk lately in the media about producers not getting paid on time from major labels. And we felt like it was important to come here and talk about it and educate y'all on it. And I brought some homies with me, man. First up, we got the Grammy Award winning. Sounds nice, doesn't it? My man llmind, man. You work with Drake, the Carters, J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Kanye, Sky Zoo, because that's some of my favorite llmind productions right there. Welcome to For the Record, man.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Nah, man. Thank you for coming. And next up, we have a friend of mine, one of my favorite producers as well, Statik Selektah, was produced for Eminem, Freddie Gibbs, Joey Bada, Action Bronson. You're on Shade 45 Show Off Radio. And you just dropped a new album with Bun B, Trill Static.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Static, man. Welcome to For the Record, man. How you guys doing? How y'all feeling today?
Good.
Feeling good.
Feeling good.
Man, beats. Did anybody make any hits today? Like
Not today, but last night.
Not today. Yeah, last night for me.
You got one. Do you know when it's a hit? Like when you kind of finish, do you know?
You never know. I mean, you know, you have favorites, but you never know what a smash record is. At least I don't.
Right.
You know, you just go in there and make stuff.
Static, what about you? Do you know? Do you get this feeling, man?
Man, I have beats from like 2008 that I was like, this is going to be out of here. This is going to change my life. And no one used it still. So the ones I was messing around with earlier this week ended up the next day on Bun's album that I never would have thought when I ended up on there.
Right.
And it's like, you never know, man. The ones you might take 5 minutes with might be your biggest records.
Right, man. It's amazing because both of you guys have done so much in music, and you're the producers that I think a lot of the young producers look up to, you know, and I thought it was super important to have this conversation, just because one, I think for producers to learn the business before they go in, and then for the music fans outside of producers to just know how to support their favorite music. You know what I'm saying? Like, what does a click mean? Like how are we giving to this ecosystem of music that we consume so much? So I want to start off with a very kind of basic question, just so people understand. llmind, I'll start with you. Just how do you make your living? Like, where's the biggest source of income coming from? We see the production credits, but you do a lot of things other than just produce.
Right. Well, I think first off, I think a lot of people don't realize like how long it took or how long it takes in general for producers to set themselves up financially, like in a real way. And, you know, in the beginning, it starts off with slang and beats, right? And you sell beats here and there, you might lease beats, and then you start building up publishing, and then you collect publishing. And you know, this is all stuff that they don't teach you in school. So you have to like do research or like teach yourself. But I think for me, you know, this is like 15 plus years in, I've been fortunate enough to set up multiple revenue streams. You know, I think for me, it's always been, you know, I'm a music producer first. So a big revenue stream for me is selling beats, you know, getting that upfront fee for getting a placement is really like not even the main source of income anymore.
Right.
It's really the back end stuff. So publishing, royalty points. And now with, you know, the whole streaming thing, which, you know, obviously we'll talk about in a minute, but that's become a big source of income. And then I have other stuff like, you know, producer meetups. I'm doing these tours all around cities.
Workshops, you have merch.
Workshops, I have merch. And then, you know, the drum kits have been huge for me. I started that back in 2011 when, you know, people were shitting on me for putting my drums out. You know, it was very much frowned upon in the community. And now it's become like this huge, you know, sort of ecosystem for producers and a real source of income. So that's been sort of a big part of it too. So it's all these different revenue streams that I've been able to take advantage of. And they're all based around like the production community.
Seeing yourself as a producer. And you know, I asked not to pocket watch it being in your pockets, but to give, you know, people a very real sense of what it is and what they have to do and how they should be thinking about themselves. Static, I know you also do a number of things other than just produce. How do you kind of generate income for yourself and your team?
I mean, first and foremost, I'm a DJ. So DJing is a big part of my life. It will always be. You know, that's something that if everything else falls apart, I'm gonna be rocking no matter what. But I own a record label, Show Off Records. We've put out all kinds of releases. I used to own a marketing company. I kind of passed it to my man, but Show Off Marketing back in Boston. Placements. I do a lot of music for Jordan Brand, Rockstar Games, Major League Baseball, a lot of different companies that I've done specific music for.
And those fall more under typically under the umbrella of like licensing deals, right?
Yep. And then obviously publishing and I'm signed to Reservoir. I had a dope deal over there. And then lastly, beat placements, which is funny because you could get a major label placement nowadays and the advance is like less than so many other things you're dealing with. It's like the least of my thoughts. Like sometimes I get a check in the mail from a major label and I'm like, oh, I forgot I did that and I didn't even care because there's so many other things bigger around that, and it's like it all goes hand in hand. But if you think you're gonna just sit there and sell beats and make a living just selling beats for the rest of your life, you're bugging. You got to get a different, you got to get the whole package together, whatever that's going to be.
And just so people understand that sort of upfront payment, that upfront advance is the same as an advance. It's basically like that upfront payment is like, I'm giving you this beat for X amount of dollars, and kind of they're paying you for your service. No matter what happens, here's the beat. It's for you.
The publishing is like what you need to have right, because say you get 10 grand, 5 grand, whatever. First of all, me and him come from a similar school where we came in after the Just Blazes and the Alchemists and all these guys. Some of these guys were getting 30, 40,000 a beat.
Right.
No one's getting that anymore. In 2019, nobody's getting that. You could be an A-list producer on the biggest album out. You're not getting that.
Right.
And, it's a gift and a curse for us, I think, because now we're, like you said, a lot of the young kids are looking up to us and we have our time now, but it's like we also missed out on that era.
Yeah, we came in that like in between era, of like CD sales declining,
iTunes,
and then like the industry scrambling for monetizing again, and then like streaming. I mean, just as early as 2014, 2015, streaming was still like
early, like 2000. I remember my first album came out in 2007. And it was also the year the drama got hit and all that stuff was going on. So I was like, I have to make a business card for my production.
Yep.
And it was like iTunes was so new that no one, people were still buying CDs then. And it was just like the in-between period where I was like, I'm about to sell this many records. And it was like reality check.
Yeah.
It's like the worst possible time to come out with your first album.
Yeah.
And I watched the whole game change through the years.
So you were that decline has to do with the shift to digital and CD sales were declining.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
right off the rip, like everybody knows that.
Now. It's less than 5%.
But talking about when you came in, CD sales were declining, and it was the shift to digital.
It was like Best Buy still picked up my album, and I was so happy to walk in the store and see it in Best Buy. But I didn't understand that these indie companies were paying $3,000 even to get in Best Buy. These programs were going on, but the sales were declining. So it's like you were almost paying for the same way people pay now to be on whatever playlist or whatever. Right. But the difference is nobody, not the same amount of people were buying the CDs. So you're paying to be placed in a,
and you might not recoup. So you're paying for the placement in the stores. A lot of
I always recoup. I never had nothing that wasn't. I'm proud of that because I've been indie for a long time, and now I'm
right. And then also a lot of producers don't know that whatever advance you receive from a label or whatever, that's you have to recoup that too.
Well, that's what I was talking about. So you don't start collecting your publishing royalties, which is the back end, right, until you're recouped on your advance.
Right.
So that money that they give you up front is essentially a loan.
Yeah, for the most part. Or the reason why also too it's so low is because they're basically paying you money that they know they're going to make back.
Right.
They're not. That's why the days of 50, like Statik said, 50 grand, 100 grand for a beat up front is just those days are over.
Because the record labels aren't making that back.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
And the important thing to realize is that when you take an advance for anything, you're getting less in the back end period. When in 2007, I needed the money, so I took I think $15,000 advance or something on my album. And at the end of the day, the label got half the money. Right. Now, if I didn't take that, then you can negotiate. I'll get 15%, not 50%.
Right.
And as you get older and in a more secure position, you can change that. But early on, That's another thing too, man. Like, have fun with this. Like, not everybody's gonna always not get robbed. It's good to get robbed a couple times coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about by the labels. It's like you got to learn the right way.
You have to make mistakes.
Yeah.
We've all signed shitty deals at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question now, just because we're kind of talking about like declining revenue streams, at least when it comes on, directly associated with the music and the placement of the beats or the back end publishing. Now that we're fully immersed in the streaming era, like sales are, like you said, I think account for maybe 5%.
For what? CDs?
For CDs.
CDs are not even.
Like, it's not even.
Vinyl is actually bigger than CDs.
Right now.
Yep.
But sales for the most part isn't necessarily a factor. Streaming is where it's at. We're kind of told two different stories, right? We're told that if you read the trade magazines and Billboard and stuff like that, there's a lot of reports that music revenue is up. So streaming is helping bring back the revenue to music. But then you also hear the horror stories of, when a TM88 says, I didn't get anything off of producing EXO Tour Life for Little Uzi Vert. And that could have been with whatever he negotiated. I don't know. But we kind of hear two horror stories, or two different stories. Where does the truth lie? Like, is the money back in the music business, especially for producers and songwriters and those behind the scenes, or is it not what it used to be?
I from my personal experience and what I've been like observing, I think we're sort of just still in this storm, and people are still trying to figure it out. I don't think we have a full 100% grasp on this entire thing being organized. Like, hey, like I get a placement on a major label. My attorney negotiates, everything is signed, my publishing is set, I have a publishing deal. I'm supposed to get a check, at this exact time for this much at this percentage rate. It's just, to me, there's too many songwriters, too many producers, too many songs for really any sustainable system to keep track of that properly. So I do think that there's a bunch of money sort of floating, waiting to be collected. I just think we're all scrambling to try to figure out what's what and who's who to try to collect that stuff. I do think the money is there, but I think we just need to figure out how to collect that money in the most effective way possible. And I don't think we figured that out yet.
Statik, you got any thoughts on?
There's just so many different angles of talking about it, because I'm an artist and I'm also a producer and I'm also like, a label owner. So it's like there's so many different angles to it. First and foremost, this is something that kids need to understand, or up and coming producers. If you're producing on an independent album, you're not going to see any mechanicals. It's not happening. Like there's some good, well-known labels that don't pay that out to this day. So you're not going to get that. In that case, you want to get your money up front, because like, unless something gets placed in a movie or a TV show or a trailer or a video game, that's when you're getting decent money.
Right.
Because if you're relying on the mechanicals, even with some of these major labels, it's like every time they, go out to dinner with the artists and some DJs and all that, they got to recoup all that before you're even thinking about getting a mechanical royalty. And
so every Uber taken in the name of
a lot
promoting
of times,
the project.
a lot of times we're at the bottom of the list, the priority list.
Absolutely.
Like all these other expenses get the first shot, and then it's us. So
I want to jump ahead into something, and we're gonna come back into something else. But a few weeks ago, Jadakiss, I don't know if you saw, was on Joe Budden on his show and interviewed, and he kind of dropped a nugget and said that he was still getting calls from producers who worked on his Freddie versus Jason album with Fabulous that came out at the end of 2017, and was saying that the label still hadn't paid certain producers for it, and producers were calling him, and Jada was like, well, I don't handle those payouts, that's the label. Is that, we're about a year and a half removed from that album? Is that, I know you said that things are slow and the pipeline is kind of clogged up, but is that what people should expect, a year and a half to be paid?
I mean, it's just so, it just depends on so many different things, man.
That's never happened to me, but I'm also like, when they, it gets complicated when you do something, especially with like something like Def Jam. You get sent, an ACH form. You got to send in the W-9. You got to fill out, like, everything got to match. And usually some of the time, like, even just recently, I did scratches on 2 Chainz album. It wasn't nothing. I didn't produce anything on it. I did the scratches. And even to get taken care of for that was just a lot of back and forth. Yeah. There's lawyers, there's people in accounting, all this. And you can get caught in the shuffle. But the thing I always do, and my manager, shout out to my manager at Rock Nation, and all that, they get frustrated with me sometimes because I'm like, we'll get an email as a group with like the paperwork and all that. I fill it out within 5 minutes and send it all back. Everybody's like, let us do that. I'm like, nah, like I want it done now because if it gets caught in the shuffle, and this is just me being, I've been indie for so long, I need to relax and let them do it. So same thing with my lawyer, shout out Lisa. She, they get frustrated, but I'm like, I got to do it now because it's gonna get caught in the shuffle, and then that's what happens. And I ain't with that. Like I want my check if it's especially the money for the beat placement.
Yeah.
I want that within a couple months. And,
Yeah.
and that,
And then when you get placements, there's so many steps. Like Statik said, there's all this paperwork, first of all. And then you have to deal with, co-production, sample clearance. And if you're a producer and you're not providing all the information, then again, you can get lost in the shuffle and then people forget. We have to also remember, like, these are human beings that we're dealing with. So like people forget sometimes, emails get lost.
Sample clearance is a whole different conversation because like I had 2 records on Wiz Khalifa's album that came out like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
One of the records, they wanted $80,000 for the sample. I've never seen that in my entire life, ever. And I was like, they were basically, his manager was like, yo, I don't think the record's gonna make the album. And I was like, nah, dude. It was like 11:30 in the morning. I was like, I'm going to the studio right now and replaying it. And we went in, we replayed it. Shout out my man Dream Life in London. He helped out with that. He had people from all over the world sending in pieces to replay it. And we replayed it so good that they were like, nah, it sounds too much like the sample. We had to do it 5 times. I'm talking about in a 24-hour process. We did it 5 times over to the point where it got approved. And finally it made the album. And like, if I didn't do what I did, song would have got scrapped. I would have took the L. Wiz would have been frustrated. But like, I don't play, like the turnaround in 2019, the same way you open your phone and can reply to things, you need to be like that with your music because you will miss the opportunity. If you're like, oh, I'll send it tomorrow. Nope, see you later.
Let me ask you a question then, because Statik, you are heavily sample based, and you don't always use samples 100% of the time, but it's your aesthetic and it's really what you like and how you like.
It's what hip hop's built off,
right? Sampling versus not sampling, pros and cons, from the both of you guys.
I mean, at this point, it is what it is. Whatever sounds good,
right?
I mean, we've got to the point where we have software that's powerful enough to sound real enough to make your own samples. So, that's something that I do now. I know Statik is probably, dibbling and dabbling a little bit. I mean, you have all these producers that are doing both now. I do think that there's something special with sample production. But then again, there's really no rules. As long as it sounds good, it sounds good. I mean, there's all these programs that you can add on, like, vinyl, wobble and all that stuff to make your shit sound like it's from vinyl.
Like you get the crackle.
Yeah, you get the crackles. So like, I mean, there's no limits anymore. So I'm a fan of both. It's like whatever sounds good. Yeah,
that's the future of it. It's like I'm always gonna sample. I probably spend more money on records than anyone out, but it's like I'm like the record what I'm talking about on Wiz album.
Right.
That was bought. Shout out to Gene Brown. I bought a lot of records off him. It was one of the records he sold me. Wiz made the song, loved it, and all that, and we ended up replaying and all that, and we made it happen. Now this is a whole different side of it, talking about money. The reason that they wanted $80,000 was that it was a Wall Street group that bought the label or the producer or whoever. They bought the catalog,
right?
And you got a lot of these dudes that aren't part of the music culture, but they're buying these catalogs so they can be like, oh, people are gonna sample it, and we'll get paid off it. They played themselves because they were being so out of this world with that price, then now they didn't get 1 cent. And they could have got 10, 15 grand for the sample.
And who knows, because the original artist might have been honored.
A lot of the time, the original artist has no power on it at all.
Yeah. But like, you look at something like Beyonce, and obviously because she's Beyonce, but Frankie Beverly, Maze, she just sampled Before I Let Go, and he just came out. So many times you hear, he just came out, oh my God, I love that. Yeah. She sampled this and gave this record new life. That's a timeless record.
Yeah, a lot of them are like that.
So artists, what I'm saying is the original artist that you sample may be honored that you
could change their life.
But they may never even get the chance to approve because they've sold the rights, and now it's just a money grab rather than
exactly. And also too, like I got to shout Statik out for this too. Like I think Statik is one of the few like producers that really is hardcore with like the digging and stuff, because like people, a lot of the younger producers, the younger generation, they go digging on like YouTube and like, you know,
That's
who sampled all
I've
shit.
done it. I've done it.
Which is fine. I do it too. But here's the thing: 10%, only 10% of the global vinyl records have been transcribed to the internet. So you're missing out on 90% of music if you're not digging for real. And we're talking about like hardcore digging, like guys like Gene, and then like Rare
I got
Records
dudes in Russia,
and China, like all these records. No one transcribed these, so and that's 90%. So if you want the real shit, you got to go record shopping. You know,
there's still a lot of sounds out there and a lot of music to be. There's nothing in the world like taking something that's been completely forgot about, that doesn't even exist really in the world besides in these warehouses of records and stuff, and turning it into new life and seeing the artist's reaction. That's like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I know we talked about it with the legendary record with Joey and J. Cole and all that.
Yeah, Joey and J. Cole.
But like James Mtume ended up being a good friend of mine, and he, his father's the Heath brothers. Like he has such a great history in Juicy Fruit and all that.
Yeah.
But like, he would come to my studio and I would show him all these records I sampled him on illegally, and he would still just bug out and be like, man, the energy, like some of them got cleared, some of them didn't. But the point is like there's other guys that hate it. Some jazz musicians will not let you do it.
Right.
They'll say no to everything, but other ones love it. So it's like, it's energy, man.
Then there's some horror stories with rock groups, and I remember Steely Dan taking a bunch of Lord Tariq and Peter Guns.
But that's not, that's their fault though, the way they did it. They like put out the record, didn't clear it. It's like,
but you still see like when you look at the top 10 Billboard, there's at least 3 or 4 sampled records on there. You have the Old Town Road. That's a sample from what's
Trent Reznor.
Guitar Loop, and then Cardi B, I Like It.
Right.
Shout to Jay White, like that record is
Cardi's
crazy.
Cardi's winning with that because not everybody has this like big Atlantic budget.
Right.
But they made the record, they went to the person, cleared it, did everything. They knew exactly when a record like that, and same thing with Beyonce, they know it's gonna be so big.
They're not taking
the
it a
artist would
chance.
be completely they'd be a moron to not meet them halfway and give them a good split on it. I remember Rich Harrison was telling me about Dangerous in Love and a Crazy in Love and all those records, and like they were giving him, like even Beyonce was making sure he got a nice chunk of the record, even though the sample wanted a lot. It's because those records, they fuel a whole company.
Yeah.
So if you do the right business, anybody wants. Have you ever, man? You play so much, especially in the recent years on the Black Panther soundtrack. J. Cole, Love Yours on Drake, Nicki Minaj's album. These are big artists, big high stake records, big high moments in music. Statik just kind of gave us a horror story where he had to put his cape on and save the day to be able to save this sample. Are there any stories like that? I'm sure you got. Anything that you can speak on?
You know what? Honestly, nothing recently. Nothing as, high stakes. But I will say that, oftentimes you'll get a situation where like I'll show a beat or a track to an artist and then they might, commit to it, and then I'll show it to another big artist. And then it's like, who do you choose? And then it's like, yo, but I gave it to you like last month.
J. Cole or Drake? Who do I choose?
I'm not gonna name names, but like it'll happen, and it gets a little complicated, especially if those two artists know each other and you have certain situation with someone, and it can get a little weird.
There's always the gamble with that too, because it's not even about who you like more, or who's the biggest artist, or any of that. It's like there's a gamble that record's never even going to come out.
Exactly.
And it gets like wasted. And I always think about that when it could be the biggest rapper in the world versus an up-and-coming cat that I know is going to use it. You got to use your better judgment.
Or if it's going to be a single from one guy and maybe an album cut or like an iTunes bonus for another.
The first record I did
like
with Eminem, I was in Florida at my man's house, and there was a dude sitting on the couch, and he was like, yo, I'll go to the ATM and take out $500 for that beat right now. And I was like, bro, I ain't selling beats for $500. And I was sitting there thinking about it. I was like, oh, I could go to the casino. We can go to Wet Willie's. I was like, you know what? I'm not
crazy.
I was like, fuck it, go get the bread. And he came back. He's like, oh, it wouldn't let me take out that much. I was like, forget it, bro. And that record ended up being the Eminem record.
Was that Detroit versus everybody?
Crazy.
No. It was the Richard joint with Obi Trice.
Right. Word.
Yeah, like
But
every like big placement is such a crapshoot. Like when you think about the story of like where that original beat was from or when you made it, it's always some crazy like random thing where it's like, like for instance, like the record I did, You're Welcome on the Moana soundtrack is like one of my biggest placements for Disney, and like there's so many things that had to happen to lead up to get that placement. And funny enough, that Statik's here, that placement never would have happened if it wasn't for Statik.
Wow.
I'll tell you
I
why.
know that.
So it goes Statik Selektah Disney.
Can my daughter get a sweatshirt or something?
Yeah, I got you.
She likes Mohawk.
Let me know what size. I'll try to make it happen. But, you know, so 2012, you were working on Jared Evan album.
Yeah.
I think it was 2012, right? 2013. Shout out to Jared Evan.
2012, yeah.
So I pull up to Statik's crib because I was helping Jared, you know, with some of the vocals and stuff. Same day I was at Statik's crib, Joel Ortiz pulls up.
Right.
So that was the first time I met Joel. Joel pulls up.
Wow.
We exchange phone numbers. We become really good friends.
Really? I never even knew that story.
Yeah, we met at your house. So then 2015, me and Joel ended up doing an album together,
Yeah.
Human. That was the same year that I met Lin-Manuel Miranda, creator of Hamilton on Broadway. So that Human album ended up being one of Lin's favorite albums. So then he reached out to me regarding the beats. That led to Hamilton, and then that led to the Disney placement.
Wow.
You're welcome. So like, and that was like 5-6 years in the making. Never would have knew that would happen, you know? So it's just like stuff like that. Every big moment for a producer, I feel like it's always rooted from just something so random. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of big moments happened in Statik's crib. I remember
man.
meeting Mac Miller.
Rest
For
in
the
peace.
Joey,
for the
yo,
first time.
these are the careers that like basically started in that.
I met Action Bronson in your crib. He was
Mac
still in
Miller,
Crutches.
Action Bronson, Freddie Gibbs, Joey Badass. Like, there's so many careers that like the first project was worked on in that. Like that was Mac's first feature ever.
Yeah, I remember.
And it's the first time in New York. All that, it's crazy. Like
I remember.
that crib was just so legendary.
Something about the energy over there, man.
It was
Crazy.
dope. Well, one thing I want to ask too before we get out here again, because we're in the streaming era. This is in the news a lot, and the U.S. Copyright Royalty Board said over the next 5 years that they're going to raise, you know, the rates from 10.5% to 15.1%. That's about a 40% increase for producers and songwriters. Now, typically, you know, artists can do things that producers can't, right? Like artists can go on tour, you know, so it's kind of hard to arrange a producer tour, you know what I'm saying? And different placements and beats. So a lot of times, and you guys do a great job at being in front of the scenes, a lot of times the producers and songwriters are behind the scenes. So there's been this lobbying to get producers and songwriters more of the royalty share. And so what did you think when, you know, Spotify, Google, Pandora, Amazon, all fighting back for this pay increase for songwriters? What did you kind of think when you seen this? I mean, do you feel it too also? Like, does it actually affect your pockets, this increase that they're talking about?
I mean, I don't know. I haven't felt it yet, you know, knock on wood, obviously. You know, when it comes to collecting royalties and publishing and points and stuff like that, obviously, like, I'm sure Statik's in the same position. Like, we have our publishers who collect, and we trust and rely on them to collect what we're owed. But I think not enough time has passed yet to really, for me to honestly really know for sure if it's impacting me positively or negatively. Hopefully it'll be a positive impact, and a pay increase obviously sounds incredible. But I mean, there's so much language in those contracts. There's probably so many little loopholes that I would go mad if I try to dissect it. So I'm like, you know, shout out to my lawyer, Vinny. Like, I'll just call Vinny and be like, how we looking? You know, like, how's this looking? Are we good, bad? What kind of shape are we in? So I think it's a waiting game right now, honestly. But the fact that there are people in these companies that are lobbying for producers and writers is a good thing. And I think it's up to us to, obviously what we do need is like some kind of producer union or songwriters union of some sort, so we can all come together and really show our power.
Shout and that's been floated around a lot. Shout out to Sunny Digital.
Yeah.
I know Sunny Digital has been vocal about that for years, about having this producers union. Statik, what do you see when you see that a lot of these streaming companies
I
are
see a
fighting
lot of
back?
selfishness, man. Because like, you know what's funny is me and Bun did this album, right? And we decided to go with Tidal exclusively for a week. Obviously, there was an agreement made that made it make sense for us to go with them for a week. But beyond that, I see all these comments, right? Not too much, but once in a while there'd be someone like, oh, F Tidal, I got Spotify or this or that. And they'd be like, I'm not switching. And I was reading people's opinions, and I'm like, You understand that Tidal pays 3 times what Spotify does to the artist. I mean,
Right.
I don't know about how the producer thing breaks down with that, but it's such a minuscule amount still that I can't even imagine how much more minuscule the producer percent is.
Yeah.
But even as an artist, it's like someone like Tidal literally pays 4 times. I mean, 4 times as much as like a Spotify or like,
They pay
even
more than Apple as well.
Yeah, no, it's like
yeah.
3 times more than Apple. But
Yeah.
and it's so ridiculous because like some of the people leaving these comments were artists, and I'm like, why don't you support the people that support you? And like
Right.
Tidal's one of those companies that's actually, obviously Hove is the face of it.
Mm-hmm.
He's fighting for these rights. And it's like, I want to see more people support those kind of companies as opposed to a Spotify who's trying to like push back against us. I don't care if y'all want to take me off your playlist or whatever.
Right.
Like I'm standing up for the artistry behind this because, not just being an artist, but a producer and all that. People are really getting ripped off. And it's like, I want to see more people in the industry fighting for what's right.
Well, part of the thing, Tidal does pay out more. Spotify has a bigger audience. You may cash out more from Spotify just because of the sheer amount
Can
of
you
audience
imagine if they
versus
were
Tidal.
doing the same?
But they've been in business a lot longer.
There's a lot of funky things with streaming because first of all, people get paid out the same no matter what, and you see all these plaques. Like I go to certain producers' houses, and I know you got plaques on plaques. I got a couple. I'm happy.
llmind needs more walls.
But when you look at these plaques, it's the thing that streaming changed is like let's go back to 2007, the end of the CD era or whatever, and you had cats like Atmosphere, like different indie artists that were doing great, selling 50, like even Sean Price, rest in peace. He had an album that did like 30, 40,000 or whatever. And it's like, that's amazing. And the money made from that was bananas. Now, if someone does that same thing streaming, it's like
nothing.
I do say that the money, kind of that blue collar artist, that artist where, we're not talking about the Jay-Z's and Beyonce's, we're not talking about millions and millions of dollars, but where you might be able to make $100,000-$200,000 a year off of your artistry.
more than that.
You know what I'm saying? But
My point is when you look at these plaques now, not to cut you off, when you look at these plaques now, it's all built off the hits because now if you have like a hit or two on your album and you got cookie cutter music or like the flavor of the month, as long as you have 1 or 2 of those songs on the album. I saw an album. I'm not even going to throw the artist under the bus because they're a friend of mine. I was at my friend's house and I seen the plaque and I was like, 15 million sold. Like, what are you talking about? That's more than like 50 Cent, like, Get Rich or Die Trying.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the plaque, reading it like, what? This is all because the one single with, a superstar on it streamed like so many billion times or whatever that they equaled all the streams up to 15 million
so the
sold.
high tide
I'm like,
raises the boat.
get the fuck out of here. That's not even realistic. Like if that was a CD and there was no streaming, it might have done 1 or 2 million. But because these hits are just all over the world, people are turning on their phones and the featured song or the song of the day is right there. And that brings in a whole nother conversation about playlisting and like how those companies influence the kids with that too. There's just so much that goes against like the musician that makes albums as opposed to just trying to make hits and having no, if you're just a great rap artist that makes serious music and album songs, doesn't try to make a hit single,
it's tough.
It's looking bad for you
tough.
because the streaming's not for you. So
it's tough. It looks like, but we see this, and I agree with you 100%, and I feel the same way. But it also goes, just to keep the historical context, I think the medium in which music is delivered, when it was cassettes, like it always kind of affects how albums are made, right? Mm-hmm. A cassette would affect the runtime, right? Because you wanted to fill up side A and side B almost equally.
B-side,
And then when we got to CDs, that was 80 minutes of music. And so artists felt like they had to make 22 song albums with 6 bonuses because you had 80 minutes.
That starts
a
new combo though, because I don't know how this works with streaming. This is something I need to learn about. But on an album, only 10 songs traditionally pay out publishing off an album.
Right.
So like people, that's why back in the day you would see albums and they'd be so short, especially from like rock bands. They would make like 10 song albums because it pays out 10 songs. After you go past those 10 songs, publishing gets funky. Now the artist is going to make money no matter what because those songs, Drake can make it.
Was it called like an artist cap or something?
Yeah, like The Dream can make a 40 song album. And that's great for him because all those streams added together makes it look great at the end of the day. But what about those 40 producers if it's like 40?
Yeah.
If it's 40 songs, there's probably 80 people involved. I don't know how that who he's working with.
How do you split that up? But you also get the idea, at least at this point in his career, Dream is doing it more for the art. I didn't feel like he was trying to.
I get it. I'm just talking about like in a situation like you look at a Kanye record and there's 15 producers on it. It's like, how is that, or any of them even? It's like I definitely want to have an off the air convo with him because I'll be like, oh, llmind killed that, and then I'll be like, oh damn, there's like 10 other people.
It's not a couple producers.
My man's
but we talk about that
of.
a lot. Like just so you know, a lot of people ask for llmind on Deconstructed, and we always talk about trying to make it work and. On a particular song, and it'd be like, okay, but we kind of need this other producer to make it work, and it's just scheduling that doesn't line up. But there's a lot of collaboration that goes on, which is dope. But at the same time, I'm sure it affects the business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're doing it with other people, that's less of a percentage you're getting. But then there's the argument of the record never would be the record without those people involved. So it's just I'm like Statik, man. I'm a fan of like putting the art first. So it's like if it takes for 2 or 3 people to come in here and make this record the best it can be, then I'm all for that. As opposed to, let me just get a bigger percentage and do it myself. Right. It's there's pros and cons to both.
It's about at the end of the day, it's about shaping the music. And look at llmind was like he said, he was putting out drum kits before. I remember sitting back and being like, yo, everybody's bugging with the drum kits. And I ended up doing it later. I used to be like, everybody's bugging leasing beats. Right. And I just started recently just because I understand times are changing. I don't have to do that. But I get to see so many people in the world that I want to connected with tell me stories in the DM or emails or whatever and be like, yo, everybody has a story behind something, and then they put it out, and then look at Old Town Road or whatever. That's the name of the song?
Yeah.
That got picked up on BeatStars. Shout out to BeatStars. They got a really dope community. And look, now that kid's good. And if there wasn't no BeatStars, that kid might be on SoundCloud trying to get randoms to get his beats. And it's about being able to get discovered at the end of the day. And the world's so big now, and the internet connects so many people that as many things that are bad about that is just as many things amazing. So it's like,
agreed.
There's no limits to things. But like I said, without him doing the drum kits and without him doing original samples and being involved in those records with 10 people, he wouldn't be able to do I'm coming to your city, come through. You know what I mean? Like you have so many other revenues that come in because you sacrifice in other ways. And the same thing with me. All the times I lost out on records, I got 2% because of the sample took it all the times I did that got me to where I can
get you in the room.
Yeah, it's about climbing up, and it's not a straight ladder, man.
Exactly,
it's rock climbing.
Man. Exactly,
that's dope. Well, I appreciate both of y'all time, man. It was really important to have this conversation. I felt like with everything we see going on in the news, like I said, around producers, I always want to have these kind of discussions to, one, give you guys a platform, and then 2, really kind of educate the ones coming up. And I know you do that with your Black Chat podcast, and that's what it's really about, man. And I
check out the Rob Markman episode and the Statik episode.
It's a good episode,
out now.
Man.
Yeah, thank you guys.
No, man, thank you for coming, and thank y'all for tuning in. Hope y'all learned something. Definitely hit us up in the comments. We're going to answer as many questions as we can, man. We really want to help you guys out with this episode. But until next week, this is For the Record. Peace.